Hi, I'm Dr. Jeffrey LeBenger. At Summit Medical Group, we believe that all citizens need to be informed about the important healthcare issues that affect their lives. That's why we're very proud to support important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Summit MD Anderson Cancer Center, Delta Dental of New Jersey. Everyone deserves a healthy smile. Valley National Bank, St. Peter's University, the Jesuit University of New Jersey. New Jersey Resources. New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. And by the North Ward Center. Promotional support provided by Observer New Jersey Politics. And by Jaffe Communications, where business, media, and government converge in New Jersey.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in beautiful downtown Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. We're honored to have Jeh Johnson, former Secretary of Homeland Security. It is an honor to have you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, private citizenship, head of Homeland Security, with all of that extraordinary responsibility for how many years?
I was Secretary for 3 years.
And before
1,124 days. You know, exactly. But I was not counting.
And before that, you had a previous job in the Obama administration.
Yes, I served as General Counsel of the Department of Defense in the first term of the Obama presidency. I left, came back home to Montclair, New Jersey, thought I was done, and then in August of 2013, the president asked me to join his cabinet. I was shocked. I had no idea that I would ever be Secretary of Homeland Security. It was a position I never aspired to, but I couldn't say no. And so I was nominated for the job in October 2013, confirmed by the Senate in December 2013, and I took the oath December 23rd, 2013, in our living room in Montclair, New Jersey, and then went to work.
One of our other neighbors in Montclair, our great anchor here, Mary Alice Williams, has had you on many times on the news here. And for those who may have not picked up all of it in terms of what exactly that extraordinary job is, describe that responsibility.
Well, the Department of Homeland Security is 230,000 people, 22 components. It's the third largest department of our U.S. government, responsible for counterterrorism, cybersecurity, enforcement and administration of our immigration laws, port security, maritime security, aviation security through TSA, response to natural disasters through FEMA, protection of our leaders through the Secret Service. And there were days when I felt like I had a third of the federal government and 2/3 of the problems. So it was challenging. The nature of Homeland Security is we're on defense. And it's key that we always try to stay one step ahead. I used to tell my people, don't respond to and prepare for the last terrorist attack. Prepare for and try to anticipate what the next one's going to look like.
How did you sleep?
Not great. People always ask the Secretary of Homeland Security, what keeps you up at night? And I'd have to say a lot of things, but the thing that probably kept me up at night the most is the prospect of homegrown violent extremism, the so-called lone wolf who could strike in a place like San Bernardino or Orlando, Florida,
or on a bridge,
or West 23rd Street in Manhattan.
Yeah, right.
And
or in
it
Europe.
Is random.
Right.
Or in Europe.
You see that happen. Truck comes across a bridge. You don't know. Random. You don't know. To connect it. Happening more and more. Like, how the heck do you and your colleagues, the experts in this field, how do you prepare for that?
Well, our intelligence community does a lot. Our intelligence community is far more robust and sophisticated than it was as recently as 15, 16 years ago, 9/11. We have the ability now to detect plots overseas at the earliest stages, and we interdict and prevent a lot that the public doesn't necessarily know about. We're challenged when it comes to the lone actor who self-radicalizes in secret in his own home, in his own garage. And what I used to tell the public when I was in office is public awareness, public vigilance is important too, because it is almost always the case that when someone self-radicalizes, there's somebody close to that person who sees the warning signs, you know, the ammunition stockpile in the garage, or certain types of suspicious behavior. And so
What should we do?
Homeland
Sorry for
Security.
interrupting, Jay. Sorry for interrupting. What should we do when we see it?
There's law enforcement, obviously, state, local, or federal. But then there are other ways to intervene if you see somebody heading in the wrong direction, short of law enforcement, short of calling the cops. At an early stage, we can talk to young people about channeling their energy and their anger toward other things, toward more positive ways to bring about change. And so the other thing I did when I was secretary, spent a lot of time in American Muslim communities.
Sure did.
I visited just about every major metropolitan area with a significant Muslim population in this country to talk to American Muslim communities about helping us help them with individuals in their midst that ISIL or Al Qaeda might be trying to recruit. And to me, that's a fundamental part of our Homeland Security, that we continue that effort. I know my successor, John Kelly, believes in that mission, and I hope he continues that.
Is President Trump right or wrong in your opinion? Because you've said publicly, I believe you told Morning Joe on MSNBC that you thought he could be a great president. But is he right in continuing to want to figure out how to stop certain people coming into this country from certain countries seemingly because of their religious and/or ethnic background?
Steve, I think it's careful when you're dealing with Homeland Security not to always act on your first impulse. Sometimes the first reaction is not the best reaction. I used to tell audiences, I can build you a perfectly safe commercial flight, but you'll be wearing no clothes, you'll have no checked luggage, no carry-on luggage, no food, and no trips to the restroom. But it will be risk-free. But nobody would want to take that flight. And so Homeland Security is striking a balance between what's appropriate for basic physical security and preserving our values, preserving our freedoms, freedom to travel, freedom to associate, freedom of religion. We are a nation of immigrants, preserving immigration, preserving lawful immigration. And so it's always good to reevaluate. It's always good to reevaluate refugee screening, for example, in response to an evolving threat picture. But outright banning refugee resettlements, I think, is a mistake.
I'm sorry for interrupting again, Jay. This term extreme vetting mean anything to you?
Well, you know,
didn't you do that?
I was just going to say, you know, I would say we have extreme vetting now when it comes to refugee resettlement. It takes something like 18 to 24 months per refugee to resettle one person in the United States.
So if the president says we need extreme vetting, you say?
We do a lot now. We really ramped it up on my watch over the last several years to better connect all the dots, consult multiple different law enforcement, intelligence community agencies about individuals before a person is approved for resettlement in the United States. There are a number of agencies with their fingers in this pie. State Department, Homeland Security, intelligence community, DOD, FBI are all looking at the threat picture. We're all involved in the vetting process now.
You sat down with President Trump. Was he president-elect at the time?
Yes, in December. In December, I met with him at Trump Tower.
To what degree did you find him that you can talk to us about? Curious, engaging, really wanting to understand?
In person, President Trump, then President-elect Trump, is a very engaging person, very charming, very outgoing. I called him to congratulate him on the nomination of my successor in December. He took the call, and he invited me to come up to see him at Trump Tower. And We met for 45 minutes. We talked about a range of subjects.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us. And he was interested. He was curious. Now, I think that his presidency is very much a work in progress. He needs to fill out the political appointments across this administration. He's only appointed a small fraction of the people he needs to appoint.
So, devil's advocate, someone says, hold on, Obama did the same thing. How is it different?
Well, I think we moved at a somewhat faster pace. There are over 500 political appointments to be made. I think over 500 Senate confirmed, and at this point, he's still got only a fraction in there, and you have acting serving in the chairs, and so he needs an administrative team. I think he should take more opportunities to get a range of opinions from people, including outsiders. And be willing to listen to your staff and the advice you get once in a while. For example, I never put out a public statement of any type when I was secretary unless I showed it to at least 3 or 4 other people first. And very often I'd read something in the newspaper or online first thing in the morning, and I'd be livid, and I'd come to work, and I will have typed out my own public statement before 7 a.m., but before I would hit send, I'd invite 3 or 4 people into my office and say, here, I want to say this, and give them the opportunity to talk me out of it.
You wouldn't tweet at 4, 5, or 6?
At very least, correct the typos.
So, Mr. Secretary, you wouldn't tweet 4, 5, or 6 in the morning?
Afraid not.
Do you think there's a correlation, particularly when you're dealing with very sensitive issues regarding security, Homeland Security, that tweeting, something comes into your head and you want to say it in that moment, whether you're the head of Homeland Security or the head of the free world, President of the United States, that there's a degree of discipline and restraint that is essential?
Well, very often the first reaction is not the best reaction.
Okay.
Very often, on the other hand, you should be prepared to go with your own instincts. Right. That's why you were put in the chair in the first place.
I know we're going to this is tricky. Syria, what the president did in Syria with the 59 missiles that were sent, right thing to do?
I believe it was the right thing to do. I hope that this administration is now prepared to think through the second and third order effects of that strike. You know, where do we go next?
Got it.
So, but yes, I support the strike. This was a line that was crossed, and there needed to be action.
To help me on this, Jay, this is an extraordinary story, and I don't want to give it short shrift. Your grandfather was an intellectual, 40s and 50s, PhD, extraordinary man. Why is this relevant to this discussion, particularly as it relates to some who are being persecuted and treated horribly in this country? What was his story, real quick?
Well, I like to quote my grandfather often because so much of what he said then is relevant now. And he was active during the McCarthy era.
Right.
And during the McCarthy era, if you were a PhD intellectual African-American who wrote about civil rights,
you were labeled.
Very often you were suspected of being a communist.
That's right.
So my own grandfather was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee to deny he was a member of the Communist Party. And it happened to be the House Un-American Activities Committee held its hearings in the same hearing room where I would testify as Secretary of Homeland Security some 65, 70 years later.
Yeah. The biggest lesson you take from that?
The biggest lesson is what I tell audiences all the time. We need to learn from history and not avoid the mistakes of history. Those who don't know history are bound to repeat the mistakes of history.
Jeh Johnson served as the Secretary of Homeland Security in this country and had the awesome, incredibly hard to imagine responsibility of protecting all of us with a great team. And I want to thank you for your service to this country and your work on behalf of all of us. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Our pleasure. State of Affairs. We'll be right back, right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are pleased to welcome State Senator Kevin O'Toole served 22 years in the state legislature, nearly 30 in public office, and he has decided at an incredibly young age to, this is it. Because, well, what's up with you? You're a young man, you've done all these great things, more things to do, and?
If somebody worked for General Motors for 30 years and retired, they would have a party, give them a gold watch, and say, great career. I've been 30 years at public service, loved every minute of it, but it's time to hang it up and move in a different direction. And I'm going in a different direction. I have a 6-year Port Authority term coming up. I want to teach a little bit. I have this law firm going on. I've got a wonderful wife and 2 kids that keep me engaged, so I've got a pretty full schedule.
You know, by the way, Kevin and I are longtime friends, and we've known each other and had a lot of offline conversations about family more than anything else. I got to ask you something. People who say, you're in politics, you're addicted to politics, you can't get out unless they throw you out. I did not have a choice. You know, as an extremely young man, I lost my seat in the state legislature.
1985.
Wait a minute. Why would you have that year right in your mind?
Because that's when I started with John Kelly in 1985. It was a terrible year. We won, you lost, you cried. It was terrible.
Hold on. I beat him 2 years before.
I know you did.
You cried. He cried.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I'm not sure if I had won whether I would have had the guts to get out.
Yeah.
You did.
They say in the state Senate it's easier to go out in a body bag than voluntarily surrender yourself. And that's the reality. There are folks who are addicted to this world. I've seen it happen. It has taken some of the very best public servants and sucked them in. They get defined by their titles, whether you're a senator or congressman, governor. They introduce themselves with that. I never do. I'm Kevin. You're Steve. But there are folks, I'm Senator, you know, so-and-so. And that is, to me, foolish. It's silly. It's politics, as your father taught me, is an illusion. You make the best of it. You do good things, but don't think for a moment that it's real.
Hold on. Senator O'Toole and your kids, I mean, I know your kids and how proud they are, your wife as well. People walk up in your restaurant, Senator O'Toole, that means nothing to you.
No, say Kevin. Absolutely. I don't ever introduce myself as a senator. I don't demand on the phone, get so-and-so on the phone. It's not who we are, Steve.
At the core. So here's the question. Greatest accomplishment you feel in your work in the state legislature after 2 decades plus is?
Just the basic constituent services, helping thousands of people either get power and electric, get them into a college, get them a job, health services, basic things. And we had an individual who was denied health services, and we got them a heart transplant. I mean, things like that you don't see, largely because of my staff. I've had the same campaign office district manager, Renee. I've had 3 chiefs of staff who have been phenomenal. That type of constituent service is what I'll miss. That's been the greatest credit that my office has given.
Greatest frustration?
The slowness, the partisanness of the gridlock. You know, years ago when I worked in the 80s as a staffer, there was this back and forth. The John Kellys and the Joe Dorias would have these conversations.
A Democrat, a Republican?
And that doesn't exist. The moment Chris Christie got elected, the Republicans were hopefully going to push some of his agendas. The Democrats, the majority, were trying to frustrate his agenda. And it's remarkable what he's done in 2 terms, despite the fact that he's had Democrat roadblocks every step of the way.
Why have you been so loyal to Chris Christie?
I believe very much in him. I think he's probably the single best governor we have seen, poll numbers aside. He's bold, he's visionary. He did what he said he was going to do, which is a rarity in politics.
In spite of all the setbacks, in spite of all the controversies, you believe he is one of the best governors we've ever had?
By far. If nothing else, he's done pension reform, which will save us $30 billion and stabilize the pension system for 30 years. If he's done nothing else, he's a wild success. He's cut our unemployment in half. It was at 10%. It's now under 5%. He gets no credit for that. I mean, he has streamlined businesses. He has talked to CEOs who have been looking to leave New Jersey and said, stay here. Let me tell you why.
The lesson you take from Bridgegate is?
Listen, the lesson is you can't control all circumstances. You can't, even though you are the titular head of the state or of a party, you know, and you bear some responsibility, individuals are going to do stupid things. I've got 50 employees at my law firm. I can't tell you what one of them on a given day will say something stupid, send a stupid email or text, or do a stupid directive. Ultimately, it's my name on the firm. I'll be responsible. Do I think he's responsible? Absolutely not. And I read the documents more so than anybody else. I served on a committee, saw documents that nobody else has seen, and he is not even remotely involved. I don't care what anybody says in the hype all aside.
How much is politics personal for you, Kevin? And because we have known each other a long time and we do have a personal friendship, do you expect people to do certain things politically because of your personal friendship sometimes on the issues? I mean, or is it purely, hey, you believe or you don't believe on the issue, or how much of it's personal?
Well, I mean, you grew up in the day when the handshake said, this is what we're going to do. We agree on a great public policy, maybe tinged with a little politics, and it gets done. There are few in our business now that you can say you take that to the bank. Steve Sweeney, yes. Brian Stack, yes. Steve Orho. There's a number of senators that I deal with and elected officials that it's Joe Crine, absolute man of his word. When you say this is where we're going forward with it. But by and large, most of the caucus in both parties, they are as transactional as they come.
Well, here's the thing. Devil's advocate is the public says, well, wait a minute. That means you just have a side deal with somebody who's a friend of yours. You're scratching his back or her back, and they're scratching each other. That's not the public's business.
I didn't say it was something for something. I'm saying we have an understanding we're going to move forward on a set public policy that makes sense. Now, once you establish that policy, it becomes unpopular. And these people will stand in the fire and say, no, we agreed to this principle. We're going to move forward. There are others who will collapse in the face of a political avalanche and melt away. I can't do that because the pressure's too much. And one of the things I admire about Chris Christie, notwithstanding the public pressures, he stood up and did some really wild things. And the pension reform is one of them. Tax reform is another one. He's done some amazing things in the face of the most vicious national media that would have melted down the casual observer in politics.
Don't tell me, because I know how moderate you are and I know how sensitive you are and how much empathy you have. Do not tell me you like Donald Trump. You're not going to tell me that.
See, I've met him once. Do I like him? Here's the reality.
You don't think he's good for the country. No, it's a setup question.
You could say that.
I'm asking, do you think he's good for the country?
I think we need to give him a chance. Unlike everyone else who has written him off a year ago, 2 years ago, he was elected by the people of the United States.
I don't question that.
Let him govern. They have criticized this man from the moment before he took office. They have micromanaged everything he's done. They've double standard what was under the Clinton regime.
You think it's different, Kevin?
1,000%. 1,000%. Listen, they don't give him, and has he made his own mistakes?
You keep saying that.
The media, you go on MSNBC, there's 15 pollsters or 15 talking heads. He didn't do this right, Syria. He can't win for losing. Just give him a shot. He's our president. Let him govern. If he makes mistakes, he either learn, and you can elect or not elect him in 3.5 years. But there are folks who have set up to kill this guy politically, and they haven't given him a chance. I don't think most have given him a chance.
You don't think that he creates a lot of his own
Sure
stuff
he does.
by being undisciplined, by constantly saying what's on his mind via Twitter or just an off-the-cuff comment? You don't think he creates a lot of that?
Absolutely does, Steve, but guess what? He's not anybody different than the people voted for in November. That's exactly who they voted for.
Doesn't he have to be better?
By whose standard? By whose standard?
Kevin, you didn't do that.
And I didn't run for president. And by the way, if you are elected duly by the people of the United States, they trust your judgment. Now, we're not going to agree on everything he does. Give him a chance. Stand or fall on what he thinks he's going to do. He's got some good folks around him. He'll learn. Listen, he's not the Washington insider. He'll make mistakes. And let's see what happens.
But you're distrustful of the media, even though you are writing. By the way, tell folks where people can find the column. You're writing a pretty provocative column. Where?
InsiderNJ.com.
That the new Max?
That is Max Pizarro. I'm lucky. I volunteer every once in a while. I get inspired and I jot a few notes down and send out some of my life experience, which I think is pretty cool.
You going to write a book?
I'd like to.
You want to say what you really think about the process.
Absolutely.
And what works, what doesn't work, and why we need to move forward. Hey.
Yes.
Do you think it's any better in Trenton, the gridlock that we see very often, than in Washington?
I think Washington's probably worse.
Because?
It's just so polarized. It's been polarized. It's been polarized since I've been watching D.C. It's just worse now. It's scorched earth mentality. The Republicans can never be right by the Democrats. The Democrats can never be right
but
by
the Republicans aren't even the same party. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're right.
Are they really?
There's three different parties going on. Listen, I think D.C. is ridiculously beyond broken, and Trump is the only person who can either remodify, recast both parties, or have the whole thing burned to the ground.
Whoa. What does that mean, burned to the ground?
It means you're going to have to, both parties are going to have to do, there's a reset, there's a recast going on in D.C. Either they're going to work together to do health care reform, Democrats and Republicans, or this is going to be a stalemate for 4 years. Either they're going to do tax reform, infrastructure reform, working together, or this is going to be a gridlock for 4 years, and then you're going to have some extremists in both parties rise out in 2020 and try to take over D.C. and try to redo this.
Kevin, after you say all these things, after the fact, some of us have known you to be someone who brings people together, you're a consensus builder. I'm not saying because you're a friend, it's a fact. You got to be saying to myself, I can't leave right now.
I can leave right now. 100%. You have to know when to say when in this business, Steve. You can't stay forever. I think you lose your effectiveness.
You think some of us should be ready to walk out?
I think someone's interviewing for your job right now is my guess. That's my guess.
You think we should know when it is? Like,
Absolutely.
great ball player, great broadcaster,
When you
great
stay
politician.
too long, Ryan Sandberg, what did he do? He left. He gave his money back because I couldn't perform. That's rare in this day and age.
Wow.
Right?
So you respect that.
1,000%.
I love this.
I said to myself, 20 years max in Trent.
You did.
And I'm thrilled. Loved it. I could have stayed another 5, 6, 8.
It'd be very effective.
And I just think you have to turn it over and have folks come in that are younger, who have new ideas.
And you got young kids, you can still be engaged and involved in their lives and do other things in a great law firm.
Absolutely.
Senator Kevin O'Toole, 22 years in the legislature, nearly 30 in public office. Thank you for everything you've done, Senator. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Steve.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Summit MD Anderson Cancer Center, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Valley National Bank, St. Peter's University, New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by the North Ward Center.
Hi, I'm Dennis Wilson, President and CEO of Delta Dental of New Jersey. You probably know that visiting your dentist and daily at-home care are necessary for maintaining good oral health. What you might not know is that your oral health is connected to your overall health. Oral health may impact conditions like diabetes, blood disorders, and heart disease. Regular cleanings and checkups allow your dentist to assess your risk and keep you and your smile healthy.